Mike, I think we're right. You just started to describe it, but we're right in the beginning. Um, there's a beginning, a middle, and end of everything. But I think we're just at the beginning of having really good data where we can start to make those decisions that inform our inventory choices. And I think we will see certain places that say, God, could we just cut down the SKU count? Unless we really know we're going to sell it, let's not make it because I think most companies are looking and saying we have an ESG goal. And you mentioned the foodstuffs. I had Lineage Logistics, which is one of the largest food logistics. I mean, they do mostly food, I think. And what they want to get to is if I have food that I think is in excess of what I'm going to use for these retail locations, let's just say it's Kroger, one of the big retailers, inform them and say, can we give this to a food bank? And you don't want to give them food that's spoiled. You want to be able to say, this is going to spoil in the next week. Can we give this to a food bank right now? And rather than, and by the way, what if we don't give it to a food bank, we're going to have to dispose of it at our cost and feel like idiots on top of that.
Yeah, I mean, you're taking an economic problem and a social and an environmental problem and mushing them all together into a terrible one. And we've seen, none of our clients, but we've actually seen like produce where, produce was being disposed of and it ended up being covered by the news. These big giant dumps of perfectly edible food, and it came back as a huge backlash, and it was really nothing intentional. It was just it had to be disposed of. Yeah, but it can create huge problems.
Right. No, of course not. And the and you think of a supply chain, um, disposing of produce means I used water, I used fertilizer, I used labor, I used my land, and then I trucked it, and then at some point I said, throw it out. That's expensive problem to have.
Yeah, and I mean the ultimate solution is like a perfectly sort of perfect visibility and perfect fulfillment in the market so that you don't dispose of anything. But I mean, it's always going to be some of that, right?
But it begins with the connectivity that you just talked about, and it begins with data and being able to have those insights not after it happens, not somebody goes, I got the report about the fruit we dumped, right? I want that a month before that says, hey, here's what we're seeing. Let's slow down, or let's talk to some other people about selling this, or let's donate it. But for God's sakes, let's not dump it.
Yeah, and having that information is key, and having it be accurate is key. And all the issues you mentioned are all it takes is one metric, one KPI to be off, one bit of information to be lagging. People talk about the bullwhip effect, but it's not just that sort of bullwhip effect in terms of the amount of stock on hand. It's that nobody realized that a lot of the product that was on hand was going out of code date in 6 days inside the 3PL, say, for example. And everybody has that information, but the systems aren't talking necessarily. So that's where the discrepancy lies.